The new Republican chairman of the House, very powerful House Judiciary Committee, has put President Obama on notice. Be prepared for investigations. One of the first potential targets, an organization close to President Obama's own heart, ACORN, has the time finally come to shine a real light on this organization's shady dealings. Joining us now with more is Matthew Beau, senior editor at Capital Research Center. Sir, you've been on the show before. Appreciate having you back. ACORN, in fact,
Thanks,
the last
Eric.
time we were on, we were talking about, aren't they just going to, I don't know, declare bankruptcy and come back as B-Corn? And they said, well, maybe. What's new in this story?
Well, they filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which means that they're actually going to wind down the organization, and they're going to have to account for what they did with the money. And I didn't expect they would do that, but there it is. They did it. They are also doing it so that they can not have to pay back $1 million that they borrowed from Forest City Ratner. They took money to support the Atlantic Yards land grab there in New York. They're going to build a big complex and stadium for the Nets.
We're going to get to that.
So
one sec. We're
going to get to that. I think you have a panelist
expert
who's related to the Ratners there.
We happen to have an expert. We're going to get to Ellen in just a minute. Ellen, get it?
Ellen Ratner, Bruce's sister.
We'll get there in
Hi
one
there,
second.
Ellen.
But Matthew, take it one step further. Did Mr. Obama excuse? Did he say let's not pursue some of these investigations of voter fraud, vote tampering, et cetera, or are they still open investigations?
He just he killed an investigation that the Department of Justice was doing early in his administration. So he has not been helpful. I still have a FOIA request pending with HUD. Sean Donovan, the HUD secretary, was very close to ACORN for 5 years when he was Mayor Michael Bloomberg in New York's Housing Development Commissioner. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. The FOIA request is 8 months old this month. There's a lot of things that haven't been looked into. President Obama was very, he's not specific.
If I may, sir, real quickly, you say that there may have been some legal advice given to ACORN by one of the investigators into the ACORN case. Is that right?
Pretty close. Let me just explain. Congressman Gerald Nadler, Democrat, New York, is chairman of one of the subcommittees of the House Judiciary Committee right now. He was pushed by the chairman of the full committee, Congressman John Conyers, Democrat, Michigan, to investigate ACORN. Conyers thought ACORN should be looked into last year. Then Conyers suddenly backed out of it a few weeks later, saying the powers that be decided against it. So somebody obviously must have leaned on him, and no one has really looked at the question. Right. Nadler himself gave legal advice to ACORN. He came up with the bill of attainder argument, the argument to sue Congress to stop the defunding legislation.
And that's how we found out that after the first year that can be funded. Hang in there, Matthew. I understand.
It sounds like a conflict of interest.
Right, it does sound quite a bit like a conflict of interest. Now, listen, Ellen, I know you're related to the group that Ms.
It's my
Matthew.
brother.
It's your brother. You can choose not to talk about this. You can't.
I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. Even though I don't really know my brother's business, I do know something about the Atlantic Yards project, and I do know something about ACORN and Bertha Lewis. And it was a public partnership that actually was approved of by the city and the state, as I understand it. I could be wrong. And it was to bring jobs to Brooklyn in terms of construction, et cetera. And people like him who can go all he wants about, how these people are getting rich and all this kind of stuff. Well, frankly, the Brooklyn project is really about bringing jobs to Brooklyn. I happen to know my brother. I've known him my whole life.
Now let me turn it. Hold on, Matthew. I know you want to jump in, but let me ask you this now. What about ACORN? Let's stay on ACORN for a second. They're being investigated, and then one of the insiders into the investigation or into the committee that may be investigating them says, I got some legal advice for you. Conflict?
Well, I guess it would be a conflict. I don't know that much about it, but I will tell you this, that anybody who's run a large organization knows that people sometimes underneath you are putting all kinds of shenanigans, and you might not know about it. And so I think they welcome the investigation.
Ellen, the only problem I have is when people are instructing people how to falsify tax returns, when people are out there saying, here, we want to sign up to vote, but the only thing we want you to vote is Democrat here, and we want you to be registered as a Democrat. I got a real problem. This is America. You're supposed to make your own choices, and you don't commit felonies like instruct people how to do these things.
Nobody has ever run a corporation, has ever had people under them.
Let's stay on again. Let's focus in here, Monica. Let's stay on ACORN.
Yes.
Should they even be allowed to exist?
Look, it took a fake pimp and a fake prostitute to expose the wrongdoing, the criminal wrongdoing of ACORN. And the result of that was that Congress, let's be clear, ACORN had a lot of public funding, taxpayer dollars coming into it. In light of the exposed scandals, Congress pulled the funding. ACORN now technically no longer exists, but you're right, it could reconstitute itself as B-Corn and go to the Congress and try to get additional funding.
Actually, they can
it is reconstituting itself.
Matthew, I want to get to you in 1 second. I want to get to Dr. Keith first. But if I'm not mistaken, they could actually still be ACORN if they wanted to. They'd just be declaring bankruptcy so they have to pay off creditors.
Sure.
Doc,
it'd be a bad marketing move for them to keep the name.
Right, hang in there, Matthew. Go ahead, Doc. This is just bad business as usual in Washington.
This is, you know, I'm trained to look for patterns. If there's a behavioral and psychological pattern, I have to call it as I see it. These folks don't abide by the rules. The idea that you would excuse your underlings, hey, they're frauds. I can't be responsible for that. I'm at the top. Well, wait, you're not? Really? How is that? Shouldn't we hold you responsible? Isn't that exactly what we want now in America? The truth, not falsehoods.
Look, I am glad, and I think that when they investigate ACORN and they find out that that tape was doctored and Bertha Lewis and what she really tried to do comes out, I think Bertha Lewis is going to look terrific. So bring it on.
No, wait a minute. No, we're not talking,
doctor?
Matthew, I'll go to you, but we're not talking just about the pimp and hoe tape. We're talking
how
about
was the tape
documents on the West Coast. Go ahead.
It wasn't. They walked into an office, and except in one office of ACORN across America, the workers were more than happy to help them, give them advice on breaking the law. And the fact that James O'Keefe is a good showman and that he wore a pimp costume in the outro and the intro to the video doesn't mean that there is any deception involved. ACORN people were shown doing what they do.
Go ahead, Dr. Keith.
It totally all makes sense. These groups cater to and empower those who claim that they have been disenfranchised and they're entitled to break the law. That's why you had this woman applauding the rioters in the street in London. Why? Because she'd rather take down the country than build it.
You are right out of your mind.
That's absolutely true. You were applauding people breaking the law because you said the society over there is corrupt because CEOs make too much money. Could you run a company of 40,000? You wouldn't. You'd be in bankruptcy. We'd have 40,000 unemployed people.
I run a company. It's not a huge company, but I do run a company, and it's not in bankruptcy, and I've run the company
You run the company
for 18
you
years.
can run.
Ellen, that is the problem and the perception of you liberal people. You enjoy violence.
We're going to have to leave it there, Beau.
What if it was your house?
Beau, thank you.